Okay, there could be a big breakthrough with Iran this weekend. The president just said that he may make a decision on the Iran draft agreement, this peace proposal, as early as tomorrow. Let's get out live to Jeff Paul. He is in Dubai, tracking the very latest for us. Hi, Jeff.
Yeah, Nisha, it is a waiting game here in the UAE and as well as the entire Gulf and Middle East right now, sort of watching to see if there's any sort of developments between the U.S. and Iran. We know the last couple of days, Tehran has been looking over that latest proposal that was sent to them. And we are also learning that President Trump has reportedly said that they are getting a lot closer to finalizing a deal. We also know that U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who just landed in India, has previously said that slight progress has been made. A little while ago, he was asked if there's any sort of news to report on regarding a potential deal with Iran, and here is how he responded.
There is a chance that whether it's later today, tomorrow, in a couple days, we may have something to say. But this issue needs to be solved, as the president has said, one way or the other. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. The straits need to be opened without tolls. This problem will be solved, as the president's made clear, one way or the other. We hope it's done through the diplomatic route. That's what we're working on, and perhaps there'll be something to talk about on that topic while I'm here on this visit at some point.
Now, we know a delegation from Pakistan that included the country's army chief was just in Iran. They met with Iran's foreign minister and the Speaker of Parliament as they work to hammer out the final details of a potential ceasefire deal. And for those who call Iran home, they're hoping progress can be made before their situation for them gets any worse. Residents who live along Iran's southern coast say the closure of the Strait of Hormuz has been devastating.
I'm absolutely upset because the economic pressure from the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is falling on the people. Those who work at the docks, for example, are now almost all unemployed. If this strait is reopened, the economy will improve.
Now, one official here in the UAE says that, according to him, he feels like there's a 50-50 chance of there being a deal between Iran and the U.S. And we know that President Trump has sort of said that, too, that there's this 50-50 chance. But from a UAE standpoint, they say this because in the past, they believe that Iran has sort of overplayed or overestimated the cards they carry. They hope that's not the case this time. Aisha.
Okay, Jeff Paul reporting live for us. Jeff, thank you very much.
So I think there's been some progress, but we're not there yet, and hopefully that'll change. It may not. Honestly, it may not. We're dealing with a very difficult group of people, and if it doesn't change, then the president's been clear. He has other options. He prefers the negotiated option and having a good deal, but he himself has expressed, concern that maybe that's not possible.
Okay, so just as Jeff mentioned there, reports now say President Trump will discuss the latest Iran draft agreement with advisors and may make a decision as early as tomorrow. In fact, Axios is now reporting just a few moments ago that the president will get on a conference call in the next 30 minutes with Arab leaders to discuss this draft agreement and get their take on it, talk with them about it. Negotiations with Iran continue. Meanwhile, new Fox polls reveal 60% of voters in America now oppose military action against Iran. As this opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal this weekend calling for the president to not leave the war half won, saying, Mr. President, finish the job in Iran and free the world from this hideous regime. Your bold action, something no other president has done, has pushed the Ayatollahs to the brink. Now is the time to finish them off. For more, let's bring in Hudson Institute Senior Fellow Rebecca Heinrichs and Fox News contributor and former CIA Station Chief Dan Hoffman. Dan, I'll go over to you first. What does your gut tell you in this moment? The president is about to get on a phone call with regional leaders in about 30 minutes. What do you think he's going to walk away with?
Yeah, well, it's worth remembering that the Trump administration launched these kinetic strikes on Iran's ballistic missile and nuclear facilities, as well as the decapitation strikes designed to induce Iran to negotiate in good faith on their nuclear program so that we could remove the highly enriched uranium from inside Iran, also deal with the ballistic missile program and their support to proxy terrorists. All of the things that President Trump criticized about the JCPOA, he wanted a better deal. We didn't get there. We've settled into an economic war of attrition where we've blockaded Iran, and Iran has disrupted trade by shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. We've got two options right now. One is a deal or maybe just an agreement to prolong the ceasefire so that we would come to the negotiating table. And the other is to resume military strikes. If past is prologue, I don't expect Iran to come to the negotiating table in good faith. What they want is to remove the blockade. They're going to want sanctions relief, and they're going to want to ensure the United States doesn't resume military strikes. And the question for the Trump administration is, what do we get in return? If all we get is a visit to the negotiating table with the Iranians, I'm just not sure that's good enough.
Sounds like, Rebecca, that might be the option that what Dan is talking about, that stopgap, just something to get us to a deal a little bit more down the road, maybe an agreement of some sort to extend this ceasefire. What do you think?
Well, remember that there's a cost to that. So on the one hand, the economic squeeze that this administration is placing on the Iran regime is taking a toll on the Iranian rump regime. They're not able to pay many of their fighters. And so there is some suffering there that can be useful, that can potentially compel a more reasonable approach. But that's going to take some time. And in the meantime, the Iran regime is able to regroup. They're able to maybe get better at targeting. They can better prepare in the event that the United States does resume military options, another military option. So there is a cost to waiting. So I think that President Trump is being given some advice, maybe by some people who have closer to the worldview maybe that Obama or John Kerry had, which is that there's more reasonable people in this rump regime that they can negotiate with. There's been no indication that that's true. We have seen some reporting that what the Iranians want, as Dan said, they want sanctions relief. They want the United States to lift the blockade. They do not want to declare the end to their nuclear program, and they do want to keep the quote, right to enrich uranium. None of those things are acceptable to President Trump. So I think that President Trump's instincts need to prevail here, and I think that means a resumption of military activity to get back to what Dan was talking about, break the will of the rump regime. We have to finish the job, and there's still more to do.
Dan, some people on the Hill feel like the president's not getting very good advice right now. This is the top Republican on the Senate Armed Services Committee, Roger Wicker. He said he is being ill-advised, he's talking about the president here, to pursue a deal that would not be worth the paper it is written on. Our commander-in-chief needs to allow America's skilled armed forces to finish the destruction of Iran's conventional military capabilities and reopen the strait. We must finish what we started. I mean, who's advising him right now? I mean, wouldn't it be the CIA, intelligence communities?
Well, for sure, the president is relying on input from the intelligence community, and specifically Director CIA Ratcliffe, whose team, you can be sure they're pulsing all of our sources on Iran so that we can determine Iran's negotiating strategy and their pain points. Remember that Iran's regime right now, it's the IRGC led by General Vahidi, and they're pretty hard line. And what they want to do is demonstrate resilience, even if they lose every single kinetic engagement with the United States. If they're surviving, then for them, they're winning. And they're doing it so that they can continue to suppress the human rights of the population. And they also want to demonstrate resilience to their proxy terrorists in the region, like Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Hamas. So I think that that's going to be the challenge for President Trump. And while Iran is disrupting the strait, that's a tricky time for us to be agreeing to negotiate. It would be better for us, we would have more leverage if we had opened the strait first and removed that as a point of contention before agreeing to negotiate with Iran.
Well, they've got demands out there right now that are pretty wild, Rebecca. They want reparations. They want to be able to toll the strait, which is not going to fly with any of our ally or Gulf nations. I want to just end with this. There's been reporting out there that Iran is quickly building back their drones. They're just arming themselves, and perhaps they're just dragging this out so they can rebuild their weapons. What do you think of that?
Well, this is what the IRGC, which is really the people who are controlling right now the rump regime, this is what they do. They try to drag this out in order to get a better military position for themselves. And remember, there was some early reporting that the Chinese and the Russians were assisting the Iranians in some way. We don't know all the details to the degree they were, but in some way, we know that we suspect that the Russians were helping the Iranians with targeting as well. So even though the United States successfully eliminated their Air Force, successfully eliminated their Navy, they still have some ways to target American aircraft. And so they are regrouping. They are rebuilding some of their ability to produce drones, which of course makes big juicy targets for the United States to conduct another military operation. I don't know, Aisha, who is advising the president to prolong these, at this point, I think, worthless negotiations. But whoever it is, it's the people who are leaking to the press and providing this information about what the Iranians are demanding on us. Of course, they're not in a position to demand on the United States. The United States does have the military advantage. And so I think that, again, the president's instincts need to prevail here, and that is to compel an end to the war by breaking the will of the rump regime.
Wow. Okay, Rebecca, Dan, stay close. There might be some breaking news in the next hour or so as we wait to see how this phone call goes with President Trump. Thank you very much for joining us on this Saturday. Great to see you.